What is going on there, everyone? Well, the impeachment trial is finally underway. Yesterday, I stayed up till about 2 o'clock this morning watching the impeachment hearings. Oh, that was something to behold. I tell you, around 11 o'clock last night, it started getting pretty heated. And that's where this story that we'll be talking about comes in. But, yeah, it's more of the same old. The Democrats are just coming up and not only saying that the Trump team is lying and all this, that, and the other. They are belittling the whole Senate, you know, saying that this is going to be rigged in the Senate and this, that, and the other. Yeah, like fists were flying. It was pretty interesting, but man, it was long. And by the end of the night, people were cranky. They just wanted to get out of there. And it was about 1:40 in the morning when they finally adopted McConnell's rules. Um, the Democrats didn't get pretty much any of the witnesses they wanted. They were all tabled. All the amendments to get the witnesses were tabled. So we kind of should have be expecting that. I think the Republicans in the Senate are just trying to get this over as fast as possible. I mean, come on. The House had their chance to make their arguments. They overwhelmingly failed at doing so. They didn't really sway anybody one way or the other because there just was no there, as they like to say in the media. There's nothing there. It was a phone call that some people saw as inappropriate and shouldn't have happened. Sure, fine. Okay. Can we move on? No, of course we can't move on. That would be the logical steps. But, whenever it comes to government, logic goes out the window. Well, let's finally get into this story. Enough of me rambling. Chief Justice John Roberts scolds both sides as impeachment trial gets heated. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts made an appeal for civility early Wednesday during the opening phase of President Donald Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate. Roberts spoke after the use of the phrase cover-up by House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler led to an angry response from White House counsel Pat Cipollone. Which, yeah, that's all they're screaming, But it's tit for tat. That's what we're looking at. Look in the House. The Republicans are saying this is a sham process, this, that, and the other, and now we move to the Senate where the Republicans control, and now it's a cover-up by the Republicans. It's a tit for tat. This is all a soap opera, a government soap opera, if you will. Nothing's going to happen. Everyone knows it. They're just doing this to rally up their bases because, there's an election this year. Democrats were trying to amend Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's proposed rules and immediately subpoena former National Security Advisor John Bolton to testify before the Senate. The attempt failed, and the rules proposed by McConnell were eventually adopted at about 1:40 a.m. Yeah, like I said, this thing went on till it was about 2:04, I think, when they were all walking out. Wednesday, after a 12-hour plus Senate session, according to Fox News. Nadler, one of the House managers in the trial, attacked senators in his remarks while calling for a passage of the proposed amendment. It's embarrassing, the New York Democrat began. The president is on trial in the Senate, but the Senate is on trial in the eyes of the American people. Will you vote to allow all the relevant evidence to be present here, or you will betray your pledge to be an impartial juror? Democrats cannot call themselves impartial jurors. That's the biggest farcity that he could have said. No, they're not impartial. They all keep saying he has to prove his innocence. First off, in any court of law, that is a nonsensical statement. You don't have to prove your innocence. The prosecutors have to prove your guilt. And every single one of these, the House people that are monitoring this, they all believe the president was impeachable 2 years ago. Nancy Pelosi herself said they've been working on it for at least 2 years. She herself has been working on it for at least 2 years. There's actually new information coming out that just dropped today that there might be an actual conspiracy against Donald Trump from the day after he was elected. I will be elaborating on that a little bit more once it becomes a little bit more clear. But yeah, so there is no impartial jury there, whether you're on the right or the left. Because we on the right just want him to be acquitted because there's nothing there. Yeah. And the left has a bias because they have Trump derangement syndrome. But yeah, what can you do? Will you bring Ambassador Bolton here? He added. Will you permit us to present you with the entire record of the president's misconduct, or will you instead choose to be complicit in the president's cover-up? So far, I'm sad to say I see a lot of senators voting for a cover-up, voting to deny witnesses an absolutely indefensible vote. Obviously, a treacherous vote. Sure. Okay. Oh, these people and their feelings. Kibalone did not suffer that remark in silence. We've been respectful of the Senate, he said. We've made our arrangements to you, and you don't deserve, and we don't deserve what just happened, Mr. Nadler. What just happened. Mr. Nadler came up here and made false allegations against our team. He made false allegations against all of you. He accused you of a cover-up. Yeah. You gotta love it. I kind of actually do like watching the government rip each other to shreds. That's the deep American. He's been making false allegations against the president, he added. The only one who should be embarrassed, Mr. Nadler, is you. For the way you addressed the American Senate, this is the United States Senate. You're not in charge here. I do like when he said that. That was nice. It's about time we bring this power trip in for a landing. Roberts, who as Chief Justice of the nation's highest court is required to serve as the presiding judge in an impeachment trial, then called for cooler heads and more respectful language. I gotta say, I think they did a phenomenal job with using Chief Justice Roberts for this, because he's a very measured man. He seems to not be hardly any emotions did he show during this whole thing. Even when he was scolding them, he was very reserved. I just think in public perception, that's going to be a good look. Having a judge who is just kind of, staying on keel. It is appropriate at this point for me to admonish both sides of the House managers and the President's Council in equal terms to remember that they are addressing the world's greatest deliberative body, Roberts said. One reason it has earned that title is because its members avoid speaking in a manner and using language that is not conducive to civil discourse. Like I said, very measured man. He's telling both sides, and that is going to look good in the eyes of the people. Even though I don't think many people are watching this impeachment hearing. Come on, honestly, are any of y'all watching it? I have to torture myself to watch it. I got Nadler up there right now, spouting off at the mouth. In 1905, Judge Charles Swain trial, a senator objected when one of the managers used the word pettifogging. I have no idea what that is. And the presiding officer said the word ought not have been used. I don't think we need to aspire to that highest standard, but I do think those addressing the Senate should remember where they are, he said. McConnell indicated that he appreciated the call for civil language. Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice, he said, as The Hill reported. Trump attorney Jay Sekulow also responded to Nadler. It's about 12:10 a.m., January 22nd. The chairman of the Judiciary Committee and this body, on the floor of this Senate, said executive privilege and other nonsense, Sekulow said. Yeah, I was actually taken aback by that. I was like, so executive privilege is obviously nonsense to them. They don't have any respect for anything. They certainly don't have respect for America or Americans, because they're putting us through all this nonsense for years now. Now think about that for a moment. Executive privilege and other nonsense. Mr. Nadler, it is not nonsense. These are privileges recognized by the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and to shred the Constitution on the floor of the Senate to serve what purpose? The Senate is not on trial. They would like, well, of course, the Democrats would like you to believe otherwise. Sekulow noted that in the Obama administration, former Attorney General Eric Holder used executive privilege to shield the administration's Fast and Furious gun-running project from Republican eyes. Yeah, that got quite a few Americans killed and a whole lot of Mexicans killed. Only guilty people try to hide evidence, Sekulow said. So I guess when the President Obama instructed his Attorney General not to give information, he was guilty of a crime? Kind of makes you think. Even though I think most people's consensus would be, yeah, they kind of were guilty of a crime with the whole Fast and Furious thing. That's the way it works, Mr. Nadler. Is that the way you viewed the United States Constitution? Because that's not the way it was written. That's not the way it was interpreted, and that's not the way the American people should have to live. The rules adopted by the Senate give each side 24 hours over 3 days to present their cases. The initial rules proposed by McConnell called for compressing each side's case 2 days. Otherwise, the rules are largely similar to the guidelines in the impeachment trial of former President Bill Clinton. Democrats have been demanding that the Senate consider additional witnesses. According to the rules adopted earlier on Wednesday, the Senate will vote on calling witnesses after each side has presented its arguments. Yeah, we still got a long way to go. We got a long way to go. We're seeing the same thing that we've been seeing. You know, Democrats are now saying they're doing the same thing the Republicans did in the House. They're coming and saying, oh, the process is going to be all kinds of jacked up. You know, Republicans pretty much know they got this. They pretty much know he's going to be acquitted. So they're just like, let's get it over with. Let's just get it over with. We don't need to call all these witnesses. You had the time in the House to do just that, and you didn't. These new people you want to call, you could have subpoenaed them in the House, but you didn't. Sorry about your luck, you know. Y'all are the ones presenting a very weak, shoddy case. Shoddy at best. But we all know what's going to happen. He's going to be acquitted. To me, this is just election meddling. They did it in an election year. They started this, in my opinion, very purposefully to do this in the election year just to meddle with the election. But they seem to be forgetting lessons from 2016. All this is doing is giving the president all the free press he could possibly get. They did the same thing in 2016 before he was elected. When he was just the regular old businessman, Donald Trump, the media could not keep his name out of their mouths. And guess what? It worked for him. It worked for him. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, you know. We all know what the conclusion of this is going to be. But what I want to know is how bad is this going to affect the election? And is anyone going to call anybody out about that? Probably not. That's how the government works or doesn't work. So, whatever. Love to hear your comments as always, and like, share, and subscribe. I will catch y'all on the flip side.